words. Welcome back to the Cannabis Podcast. Another episode of Last Weed Tonight with Philosophies. Phillip James Latham. We're going to start covering some main articles of the last week or two, and actually one from like last year, but it's pretty good article.
It's relevant. It's
Yeah, it's
relevant.
relevant. So what you got, man? What you got for the people to start off with?
All right, so kicking us off, I'll share my screen real fast. All right. So, new administration, new policies, things change, obviously, but doesn't always go well for, the people in this wild world of weed. So, articles from mjbizdaily.com, Trump research cuts threaten cannabis studies and pose rescheduling questions. So basically, this article is from February 27th, 2025. So it's just about two-ish weeks old. Starts off, the Trump administration's plan to cut federal research funding threatens 565 ongoing experiments involving cannabis, according to an MJ Biz Daily review and interviews with scientists and academics. An accompanying freeze of new National Institutes of Health grant is also stymieing future research at a key moment and raising questions about the fate of marijuana rescheduling as well as suggesting profound consequences for the regulated marijuana industry. The NIH announced February 7th that it would drastically reduce to no more than 15% of or 15% the amount of quote indirect costs or money to use to cover administrative and facility related bills financed by federal research grants. Without fully funded indirect costs, quote, I literally cannot do my research. Angela Bryan, a professor of psychology and neuroscience at the University of Colorado Boulder, who studied high THC cannabis as well as the use of marijuana for pain, mood, and sleep, told MJ Biz Daily in a phone interview. Universities immediately sued to block the NIH cuts, which are now on indefinite hiatus pending resolution of those legal challenges. I mean, he's
Okay.
been he's been slashing and burning, him and Doge, and it was I mean, I kind of figured it was just a matter of time before it was going to have, ripple effects like this in terms of actually stonewalling and impeding progress that, people have been vying for. We've been talking about it the last couple times, is like the only way this is going to move forward is if research continues in terms of like a better understanding in mass of the population on the efficacy and applicability of this plant towards a cacophony of things, not least of which are addressed, pain, mood, and sleep, just as like pharmaceutical replacements in terms of therapeutic options. So I figured it would happen. It's a bummer that it's like having a complete like bullseye targeted effect on like cannabis research, but I can't say it was necessarily, you know, unpredicted.
My
Um,
my
good.
cousins are both tenured professors at Boulder. So they were telling us like text message strain and all that stuff that they got immediately notified as soon as Trump said all that stuff that do not do any further research. Like basically what that said was everything is on hold. And I didn't even think, honestly, I didn't even think about it with cannabis because I just didn't even, I don't know why I didn't even think about it because I just thought I thought honestly thought it was under the Department of Agriculture.
That's what I thought.
So
I didn't know there was NIH grants that were going to cannabis research,
now
which I'm like kind of stoked about, but also a
fair
bummer.
enough because you're researching the science of it, but
Right.
also hemp, I guess maybe hemp would probably be more under, but either way, the scientific research, honestly, we already have it. So like it, not to be whatever, but we already have the research. It's already out there. They've already told us, but then they fud it out later and make it, they count. Can you scroll down a little bit more? I
Sure.
just found something very interesting. It's kind of off topic of cannabis. It's the list of the organizations. Keep going down. I think that's the one on MJ Biz Daily. Wait,
Yeah, because it's the end of the article.
um, Trump research cuts threatens cannabis studies.
Yeah.
Well, it has a list of all the. I'm on his. How is
Oh,
it?
there you go. According to NIH database, 565 ongoing research projects with a total of $320 million in funding mention marijuana or cannabis in the project title or terms.
But I have it. I
Is that
have
what you're
it
talking about?
right here. Recipients of NIH research grant. Um, This is
Send me the
interesting.
link and I can
I
pop it up.
will. That's gonna bug me real quick.
Well, it's funny. So, okay, so you were t saying about like studying science, and we have all the science. There's a quote in this article that says, without reliable research, the regulated cannabis industry will be hard pressed to fight allegations of marijuana's drawbacks in lawsuits alleging high potency products' severe harms. The severe harms are like, yeah, it can cause people with a propensity for schizophrenia to be triggered. It can cause panic attacks, even like, rampant and, ardent consumers can sometimes suffer from consequences of like overindulgence, but
I just sent you the
not
link.
gonna, you're not gonna
Don't-
die.
No. Take a warm shower, eat some food, go to bed.
Yeah, right.
So the link I just sent you, it has a list of all the schools. No, wait, what? Not that one. That's the one I
What's the
just
link you
sent?
just sent? Yeah, that was the latest one in
No,
the
not in the
chat.
chat.
Yeah, I thought so.
No.
Chat. Oh, whoops, my bad. Sorry, people, doing it live.
The one doing it fuck do it live. That one. There we go. Um,
Yeah, this is
keep
the same
going.
article. Oh,
Except
oh, whoa, weird. Why does yours have this list and the
exactly.
one that I had doesn't? That's trippy. What?
Right. You sent me the link, then I sent it back to you and it had a list. That's crazy.
All right, people. So, weird little, tech
Shit.
goblins or something happening. Anyways,
But
continue with your point, Brett.
you'll notice Yale and Brown on there. Those are private institutions. So we're giving federal dollars, tax dollars to private institutions. Just pointing that out. Now the other ones are all public. You know what I mean? I don't know about
Hmm.
medical University of South Carolina. It's a private medical one, so I'll kind of exempt that one. But Yale,
Interesting.
Yale and Brown are Harvard or Ivy League
Ivy
schools.
League. Yeah.
They're private. The other ones, UCLA, UC Irvine, which my mom went to school. By the way, it's my mom's birthday today. Happy birthday, mom. Love
Happy
you.
birthday, Mom.
So yeah, I just want to point that out. All the other ones are,
Interesting.
yeah, and and usually a lot of those are actually like California, West Coast, liberal.
Mm. Well, it's funny. So I said back in like 2010, I was like, I guarantee you that weed will be legal in some part of the United States, and Colorado and Washington were the first two to go.
Yep.
This is so trippy though. Weird.
Notice how it's
Oh,
interesting.
oh wait, it isn't here. Womp
Notice
womp
how
womp 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 womp.
notice how Ole Miss isn't on there.
Oh yeah, that is interesting. Or at least they're not
Well,
the
they're not the top grants,
yeah, let's see. Here, so wait, let's see.
which
Two
is crazy to think of. University of Colorado Denver gets $12.5 million a year to study cannabis. Now, that's interesting because honestly, I would
where
think Colorado wouldn't worry about this in cannabis because they have all that money from taxes. They're good, which is actually going to show people if you legalize cannabis in the state, you can circumvent these national. Well, there you go. If you
here's
legalize
another.
in the state and you produce it in state, you just put a whole new crop and agriculture and industry online that is local, that skirts all these tariffs, provides food, energy, yeah, and the list goes on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I just want to point that out that those were private institutions,
This
which
is a really interesting list. I'm looking for Ole Miss.
right there, University of Mississippi.
Boom. Yep. They get three grants for a total of
I
$795,113.
I didn't even know you could scroll up and down on that thing.
It's a page scroll at the
Oh,
top.
there it is right there. Interesting.
And
So
I guess I could have just searched for it.
there's a lot
Hmm.
more public ones down on the list, but out of the top ones, two of them are private. Which personally, I don't think the government should be giving any private schools any like if you want our school system to be better, give it to our public schools, like for grants. That only makes sense. But Ohio State's
GW.
on there. Well, that makes sense. Ohio's legal now.
Harvard Public Health.
Um, but yeah, so we'll pin that article
Interesting. Yeah, that's
in
cool.
the description of this. So just check it out down there. And what do you want to
The
move on
next,
to
so the
next?
next one's yours.
The pesticide scandal, or
Oh, you want to do,
Let's do
yeah.
that one right there. Majority of Americans say alcohol is more harmful than marijuana. A poll finds. This is an interesting article, and I wanted to say this because I don't drink, and I only partake in cannabis, whether it's smokable or edible. Um, but this article is pretty interesting. That says basically ask which substance they feel is more harmful to a person's health. 58% of respondents said alcohol is more dangerous than cannabis, compared to 19% who said the opposite is true. 10% said neither is more harmful than the other, and 13% said they weren't sure. That's an hey, stoners, you're not doing yourself any favor right
I don't
there.
know, man. I don't know.
Uh,
That's a tough one.
I
Come on,
don't
guys.
think either one's more harmful. I think it's a tie.
Jesus.
Um, Broken down by party, 64% of Democrats, 59% of independents, and 52% of Republicans described alcohol as more harmful than marijuana. So, literally across the board, everyone thinks. Now, this isn't just based on science. This is based on just polling and just,
I think, I feel.
I think, I feel, my truth, right? So,
Yeah.
um,
My identity today.
over 52% of all people think marijuana is safer than alcohol. And data supports that. We've done a lot of articles and talked a lot about that. You can go back through and check it all out. But um, fatalities, crashes, and roadside accidents are down in states that legalize. Underage consumption is down. Not only underage cannabis consumption, but underage alcohol consumption is down in states that legalize weed. So it's like, okay, you
Interesting.
want to help the youth get off alcohol, literally legalize weed for 21 and up. There you go.
Yep.
Um,
That's interesting. This is an interesting part of the statistics. So 5% said they enjoy both substances equally, and 48% said they don't personally enjoy either.
where's my crossfaders at? That was me in high school, or yeah, and like I was just a six pack and give me a six pack and an eighth. And by the time I'm halfway done with both, I'll be feeling great.
I was gonna say that would not have taken me all of that to
Oh,
be
not
a
all
good,
that. No, 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 no,
good
no. I'm
level.
like
That's like
halfway
enough to
down.
share. That's enough to share.
That's what I mean, for me and the
Yeah.
home.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I just wanted that to just real quick. I just want to show everyone. We don't need to go into more detail, but I wanted everyone to know most recently, a new poll came out and said over 52% of people agree cannabis is safer than alcohol. Um,
I'd be curious like what the demographic breakdown of YouGov's polling audience is, but that's kind of getting into the weeds on things, if you will.
right. YouGov is like a
Pretty middle of the road, right?
I mean, just mainstream,
Or
it's like
yeah, that's what I meant.
it's mainstream, so you know, you can look into
Yeah.
that. But yeah, cool, man.
Yeah.
What's next?
So next we move into something that I found
Ooh,
interesting about, the whole rescheduling and Bobby Kennedy being in at the HHS and, the new head of the DEA and yada, yada, yada. Title of the article again comes from MJ Biz Daily. Suspicions the DEA rigged rescheduling process fueled by court documents. So now we have a circumstance where literally the enforcement agency is out here not only putting their thumb on the scale, but like, literally impacting directly the rescheduling process of cannabis. So the article starts, longstanding suspicions that the DEA is adamantly opposed to marijuana rescheduling and waited a public process to ensure it could reject moving forward or moving the drug from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 under federal law are confirmed by agency decisions made public during an ongoing lawsuit. At least that's the allegation made in a February 17th federal court filing by a group of doctors who were shut out of the rescheduling process. According to DEA documents public or made public as part of a lawsuit brought by Doctors for Drug Policy Reform, an organization of pro-cannabis research medical professionals. The federal agency, one, considered a total of 163 applicants, selected only 25 based on still unknown criteria, rejected participation requests outright from New York and Colorado officials who supported rescheduling, and attempted to aid almost a dozen opponents of marijuana rescheduling. It's the fullest disclosure to date of the DEA's action during the marijuana rescheduling process. Quote, it confirms what we thought, Dr. Brian Adenoff, a Colorado-based addiction psychiatrist, academic, and president of the DDPR, told MJ Biz Daily. The DDPR's court action, first filed in November, seeks to compel the DEA to redo its witness selection process, or, failing that, at least to make the agency explain its actions. That matter filed by attorney Austin Brumbaugh, blah, 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 pending in the U.S. Court of Appeals for District D.C. Court. Part of DDPR's objective was to determine if the DEA's process was, quote, fixed, and it appears to be, he said. So it's just like, how are we going to have any kind of like, I mean, this kind of goes back to what you and I have talked about before in terms of stuff like voting. And, the will of the people often is not, if ever, actually what gets implemented. So like everybody could be out here like vying and supporting, cannabis rescheduling or voting for some other legislative initiative. And it's not unless certain factors support it, it has no chance, let
Yeah,
alone get the DEA out of the fucking way to allow for something that makes just common sense to actually move forward and happen.
we're in the what are you going to do about it stage of democracy,
Hmm.
uh, where every department is going, what are you going to do about it? Like Ohio, for example, we talked about this. They want to roll back the voter approved thing. Like the one semblance of democracy we have is to be able to do a ballot initiative where you gather signatures and you pay the administrative fees. And if you get X amount of signatures, you're on the ballot with whatever. That's democracy in action. Only 25 states actually have that legal, okay? Which means we're barely a democracy, like literally at the at the 50% mark. So half the country literally can't even democratize issues. So how do you, like you said, how do you fix issues that people don't want to fix and they have the power?
Yep. It's so crazy. Like, so the article goes on. It says changing marijuana status under federal law would provide long sought tax relief to legal plant touching businesses in the $32 billion U.S. cannabis industry. And it's believed encouraged Congress to pursue other MJ reforms stalled in Washington, D.C. So this is the part of the HHS that I was trying to get to. At least some observers in Washington, D.C. believe the DEA would approve the finding that marijuana has a quote currently accepted medical use, a conclusion first arrived at in August 2023. It was long before that actually people realized it had medical viability. Uh, by the Department of HHS, whose head is now Bobby Kennedy,
Bobby
and
Kennedy.
whose entire family, is advocating for, you know, decriminalization of a lot of more things than just cannabis.
JFK used it for his back.
Right. Um, Congressional Research Service found DEA acknowledged in 2020 that it's bound by law to follow recommendations on matters of health and science from other federal agencies. But doubts about the DEA's even-handedness concerning federal prohibition of marijuana appeared almost immediately after the Justice Department in May 2024 published its proposal to move the drug from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 of the Controlled Substances Act. Footnotes in the April 2024 memo from the DOJ's Office of Legal Counsel showed that the DEA argued internally against rescheduling marijuana and disputed the new standard the HHS determined or used to determine, quote, currently accepted medical use. I don't know why I can't talk today. Exactly what the DEA told the Office of Legal Counsel is unknown. Because of course, why would they actually publicize what they were talking about behind closed doors in a process like this?
Well, people have been also filing FOIA requests and they just get ignored. So
Sure, par for the course.
it's just normal. They just stonewall it and until something I don't know, changes, whatever that is, or they're allowed to disclose it. But the interesting thing about Bobby Kennedy is that he was running for president and was very pro cannabis, and he was very pro medical cannabis and using tax dollars in smart ways and all that. He had a very logical plan he rolled out, but he recently said, I'll defer to the DEA. And the irony of this is that technically, when writing, I agree with the DEA. Now, hold on. I agree with the DEA when it says, quote, we shouldn't reschedule cannabis. You're right. We should deschedule it. So that's, I think, what is kind of the discussion being convoluted on purpose.
Oh,
Um,
dude, the conversations right now are so convoluted. Like we were talking offline beforehand about some of the other people that I've been talking to most recently. And even, being able to distinguish between hemp and cannabis is one hurdle to get people over, let alone legislators. But then even just within the hemp side of that discussion, there's like a huge like convolution in terms of everything because of all of like the hemp derived products that are being
because you have bad
marketed.
actors and then hemp derived, which is a good segue to this next article that you have, which is
Whoops.
the
The
pesticides scandal
Oh, this one. Yeah.
shakes confidence in California cannabis market. This is an interesting article. Um, that so California cannabis brands, retailers, and testing labs are scrambling to regain confidence in consumers in the wake of a pesticide scandal that has poisoned goodwill in the state's regulated industry. This is interesting because I know these people. Some retailers, such as Long Beach-based Catalyst Cannabis Company, are running their own independent labs to sniff out potentially contaminated products and identify their source. Meanwhile, the Department of Cannabis and Control, the state's chief marijuana regulator, is facing criticism for nearly every segment of the industry after a report by the LA Times that highlighted the presence of pesticides in several regulated products. Some products tested well beyond the threshold set by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency for a single exposure, underscoring potential safety hazards for consumers and presenting a significant challenge to retailers and other license holders. Now, pause real quick, right here, because there are, notice it says thresholds set by the US EPA. So there's, what about the state agency? So there's no, and the US EPA doesn't have any official testing standard at all. So it's all ad hoc. They're doing, literally what they're doing is they're taking their friend's advice and saying, this is the best way to do it. And they're going, okay, you do it since you know. Anyway, I continue.
Hold on.
Catalyst,
Let me jump in real quick because
go
you have
ahead.
your it's funny because you have your experience in the industry and then I have mine, which is why I think it's an interesting dichotomy. So when I was working for the distribution company that I was working for, we ended up actually becoming one of the first distributors that was what was considered clean green certified at the time,
Yep.
right? So clean green certified, what does that mean? Well, it's literally take like the guy that started clean green certification for the cannabis industry came from the US Department of Agriculture. And what he brought to the cannabis industry was all of the standardized like all of the standards for the USDA organics label,
Mhm.
he then basically just translated to the cannabis industry. So the clean green certification for the time was supposed to essentially be the equivalent for the cannabis industry of what USDA organics was for the food industry.
Yeah. How's that? Has it evolved? Has it just kind of gone away?
I honestly haven't followed up on it. That's actually somebody else that I was thinking about reaching out to for an interview. So thank you for the reminder.
The
Anyways, continue.
article. One of the largest retail chains with 28 locations is utilizing several state licensed labs to test about 20 stock keeping units, SKUs, from 8 or 9 brands it carries. The tests are considered full panel, akin to the standard tests the DCC requires to gauge the presence of pesticides, mold, heavy metals, potency, and other attributes. Uh, Catalyst CEO Elliot Lewis plans to randomly test products from his store shelves on a rolling basis. His total retail inventory, 4 to 5,000 SKUs, is unrealistic and obviously not viable. So what's interesting is that there is full panel testing and then there's just potency testing, which they didn't talk about. So there's also R&D testing, which is 1 or 2 tests, like potency really, and probably one other pesticides. But then there's full panel. Most, as of when I worked there, most of the companies only paid for R&D until the last final test because it costs so much more. So just a potency test is like 70, $80, less than $100. But to do the full panel, it's anywhere between $400 to $1,000, depending on the test. So, and you have to do that multiple times throughout the process. And therefore you're really losing. And then that's why the taxes takes away the margins. So if you take away those taxes, those testing things can actually be done and the proper way of doing things can actually occur, but it can't occur because they're getting squeezed out by the taxes, which is the money that they need to fund those actions. Anyway, I
It's
digress.
so goofy. It's so goofy the way that the economics of the whole industry have kind of shaken out. Like it's funny,
Goofy
we
is
also got
a great word to say it. Makes no sense.
because we again talking before, it's so funny to kind of come to the conclusion of like, okay, so am I better off going to, and this actually kind of segues into, oh no, I guess it's a kind of this one. It kind of segues to the other article
We'll
too,
talk
but
about this real quick.
the fact that like this industry as its regulated status in California is in the entire state's economy and whatever, you still have this like rampant problem of pesticides and other things being used on products that end up in a customer's hands. Whereas if, you or I were, out at some event or something and, smoking a joint and the farmer happens to be one of the guys in the circle, to kind of get into a rapport with him and he's kind of telling you about all of his methodologies in terms of his process for growing things and his SOPs and you hear all of the organic methods and flushes and all the things that make a clean end product, and he's like, yeah, it's like basically it's organic. And you're like, can I just buy from you? Yeah, sure. Here's a eighth,
Yeah.
here's an ounce, whatever. And you'll probably get it for cheaper, know who directly it came from, and essentially you got a great deal on way more than you probably would have if you went and had to buy it from a store.
Right. Right. Now, that's you in California and states that's legal, you can grow at home mostly. And
Yeah.
even though I think there should be no limits, there are. And it's still, even with limits, still plenty enough to grow enough for you
But
and like 5 friends and 5 families. But the testing lab methodologies are so hard to formulate because you're coming up with them on the spot. So, say I have a chocolate bar that is from a new brand. You have to not only have to test the products that are in the chocolate bar that are in the chocolate, right? You have to test everything, the THC, the potency, the mold, and then like we talked about earlier, is that THC in the edible distillate, whatever it is it synthetic THC? Is it hemp derived CBD? Is it cannabis? Is it full spectrum? Like, what is it? And how can you tell that? Well, as of right now, you can't. And that actually will be solved in the future with blockchain methodology. That is where this is going to go eventually, which I'm going to do a video on pretty soon. So check that out. I'm really, really intrigued by track and trace and all that stuff.
also, sidebar for just that part of this conversation, uh, have you heard of the other tech called Hashgraph? Were you the one that shared that with me?
Federa,
I think so.
H bar.
that basically like instead of like blockchain clunky one on top of another and like verification via all the nodes on the network happening one after another, you essentially get like even a further decentralized chain that's then like cross verified
Also
all
quantum resistant.
yeah. So I was super fascinated by like the hash graph tech versus blockchain. I was like, oh shit, this is like
Not financial advice,
way better.
but XRP can do like 16,000 transactions in like 5 seconds. Financial transactions. Bitcoin can do like one every 5 minutes or something like that. But Hedera throttles down to 16,000. It can do like 50.
Whoa,
So or I don't know if that number is accurate, but it can do
way more
way more than XRP, which is the next fastest one
interesting.
than Bitcoin. XRP does a, a ton of transactions and Hedera is faster.
But this is last week tonight. We're not here to talk about
But this is
crypto.
last week tonight. This isn't last crypto tonight. There's different channels for that, different shows for that. But that is I
Yeah,
want to get this last
blockchain tech. Yeah, I agree. I agree with you that like the track and trace element of industry will come much more prominent into it already is, but like, I'm also interested to explore that subject more so, especially in its current status versus where it started. Because I was in the industry back when the transition was happening from medical to recreational. And all I think there was like three players in the game for track and trace at the time, whereas I'm sure now there's like a bunch. But anyways, I digress.
um yeah, Algorand is a crypto that is now partnered with the Hemp Inc. blockchain to do track and trace. And a farm I went up to, Henry's Originals
Oh, yeah, rock.
up at Spy Rock Mountain in Mendocino, they were the first track and trace partner with the government, meaning,
Really? I didn't
yeah.
know that.
So
Because
meaning,
Henry's is one of the brands we distributed.
oh, okay, yeah,
I know Rock and Jamie.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
Yeah.
who I have all their footage, but it just doesn't have audio. It's terrible.
No, womp womp.
You should talk to them about all this actually, because I actually was talking to them about hemp because they were growing now. I mean, not to whatever, but they were growing Harley Quinn,
Yeah.
and stuff, but it wasn't legal to grow yet in California.
Well, dude, they were yeah, because they were one of the first brands that I ever remember. Sorry, we're like outing stuff. Whatever. This is old news now. This is like
Legal
almost
now.
yeah, I was gonna say this is like almost 10 years old almost. But they were one of the first brands I ever saw that were doing high CBD to THC pre-rolls.
hmm
And like the little cartons of like three or four pre-rolls or whatever, like those things were hotcakes, man, because they were the only ones. And for anybody, like my parents or people that are like, oh, I don't really want to get too high, like literally perfect little starter product should be like, how do I feel?
That's Henry's.
Yeah, that's funny.
So
That's
I can't.
awesome.
I
But
gotta
yeah,
turn the
I,
music
w-
on.
I was
Copyright.
I was up at that farm for a weekend myself. Yep. Oh wow, you got to go to the indoor because
Yeah,
I could pull up photos from the hoop houses.
that was when it's super dope up there. They were awesome. I'll try to get more of the footage, um
It's sick.
put with the canopy open. I'll try to put more of this footage on the
Cool.
YouTube and Instagram and stuff. But um they uh they were joking around. I was like, that's him. And he's like, we can't talk about him. And he grabbed the camera and like went like that. Um it was like in the outtakes and everything. It's pretty funny. But no, Rock and Jamie were great. And they were talking about track and trace that in the future, you'll be able to scan the barcode or however they identify it and pull up every single person that has touched that plant from the person who grew it.
Yep.
Truly farm to table, seed to sale.
Yep.
So, which that's awesome. Like I don't, that's a great use of that tech. you know, to make sure everything is safe and secure. And if something happened between here and here, this is who's responsible for it. And
Perfect segue
go for it.
to legal cannabis product. Oh wait, no,
Boom.
whoops. This one. Sorry, this is the one I wanted to go to next.
Boom.
Yeah, artificial cannabinoids, illegal THC potencies in hemp shipped to California. If this was tracked and traced and database the way that they were talking about doing, this would not be as rampant of a problem in this here article. So, a new study by a group of licensed cannabis businesses, again,
Yep.
comes from MJ Daily, and affiliates highlights the widespread presence of synthesized cannabinoids and THC limits far exceeding California law in dozens of products shipped into the state, branded and identified as hemp. According to, quote, The Great Hemp Hoax, a white paper released Thursday, 95% of the 104 tested products, so I'm assuming like what, 96 or 97 of
I was going to say they're
104,
probably just being generous. It was probably all of them.
it was probably all of them.
If I'm being
From
honest.
six from 68 brands contained synthesized cannabinoids, which are banned in California, thankfully so. Several products, which were shipped via online purchases, contained high THC potencies and other compounds. Quote, the Great Hemp Hoax found some gummies contained 32 times more THC than state limits. Yikes.
Those are the ones
Had
you buy at the store. They're like 1,000 milligrams. Like,
whew,
that's not legal.
Uh, vape products on average had THC levels 268% above legal thresholds. Nearly half contained synthetic THCP, a compound researchers describe as exponentially more potent than THC. And some products contain psychoactive substances such as kratom and hallucinogenic mushrooms. So there's all these you know, cross potency and like, this plus this, like
Stuff people do at home, but
hippie
they're
flip
selling it.
bars and stuff. Yeah, like I've had, there was a chocolate bar that had like MDMA and mushrooms in it that I saw once. I may or may have not, whatever. Different
I was
conversation.
going to Coachella, maybe.
Yeah, it might be something that I might try. Not quote, not hemp at all. Much of what's being sold as hemp today isn't hemp at all. It's a cocktail of synthetic intoxicants and illicit THC masquerading as natural legal product. Said Tiffany Devitt, sorry for mispronunciation, Director of Regulatory Affairs at Groundwork Holdings, which partnered with other license holders to organize and run the study. Groundwork is the parent company of Northern California marijuana jeez,
That's so many.
Northern California marijuana manufacturer and cultivator CannaCraft and Southern California retail chain March and Ash. The study was also supported by Sacramento-based cannabis retailer Embark and United Food and Commercial Workers Local 35, which represents more than 13,000 unionized employees in San Diego and Imperial counties. Products were tested by San Diego-based Infinite Chemical Analysis Labs. Infinite Labs founder Josh Swider said or gained widespread recognition in the industry since his lab had been at the forefront of exposing an ongoing pesticide scandal, see last article, that has rocked California's regulated market. Congress needs to help, group says. So again, they're vying for like more like legislative like involvement because this is just a problem. So, going back to what I think we were talking about either earlier in the show, I can't remember now. Conversations are blurring a little bit. Anyways, but we were talking about earlier where, the hemp industry and the cannabis industry, while they are connected in a lot of ways and they overlap in a lot of ways, they are distinctly different products, so to speak. But you can make end product for consumers from both of them that essentially have the same things in them in terms of like cannabinoids or terpenes and all that kind of stuff. But you also have the ability to not use just the natural product and instead use a lot of synthesized product. So there's like multiple differentiating factors along the way in terms of how you can get to your vape, edible, pre-roll, whatever. That you were mentioning like, yeah, you grow some hemp, it's got no THC on it, spray it with some synthetic THC, voila, break it up, crumble it, put it in a pre-roll, THC pre-rolls, bam. Now, how do you test for fake THC? Is there testing for that? Because the other conversation we had earlier was how there's literally no standardized testing across the industry.
Right.
Again, need for regulation or legislation. I'm not necessarily a proponent of huge government, boot next step in whatevers, but having a standardization of, hey, everybody should do this test XYZ to make sure that products don't have all that naughty stuff in them so that it's not going to kill people potentially. Because that was another conversation I think we had on one of the previous episodes where we're talking about the kid that got a hold of his dad who was like a lab tech or something, synthetic cannabinoids, sprinkled some powder on something, smoked it, and died.
Yeah.
Like synthetic cannabinoids are not in any way, shape, or form the same thing.
Hmm.
So,
That's the thing is
yeah,
when you have it, oh, it's 10% or 15% or 20% THC, it doesn't say, and I know this because I even asked them. I said, does it tell me synthetic or natural cannabis derived? And they're like, no, it doesn't differentiate. It just says THC. So that
problem.
that's a problem. That should be known, That's basically what you're talking about earlier.
Yep.
It's like what we're saying, like GMO or non-GMO. It's like if nowadays I would be interested to see what people think, but if I don't see a label, I just assume it's not.
Right. Yeah.
Like if
Well,
it's not,
so
if it
then
doesn't say gluten-free, non-GMO, or organic, I'm assuming that it's not any of those things.
that also brings up an interesting thing. Part of the reason why my wife and I are considering moving to Tennessee is because Tennessee has actually passed a law that says that they have to label the food products that have been injected with mRNA.
Mm-hmm.
So, at
They're
least
also
there's some
they've
places
been
that
flyovers.
aerosol injections, no cloud seeding anymore in Tennessee.
Yep, that's a big one. Texas,
No
where you
more
at, Texas?
chemtrails.
Where you at, Texas?
Hmm.
I look up all the time here.
California.
I look up all the time in Austin, and I see very, very thin, long clouds,
Hmm.
that don't
Yeah.
move. Anyway,
Yeah. Yeah. That dissipate very slowly. Hmm.
right, and they
Like
form
a
right after a
vapor.
plane flies through.
Yeah.
It's like they split the sky and the clouds form.
Geoengineeringwatch.com. Great resource.
So
Anyways, we're not talking about conspiracies and stuff on this show. We're talking about
no,
weed because
the
there's enough
C in
there.
cannabis doesn't stand for conspiracies. It stands for culture.
That's right. That's right.
Sometimes includes conspiracies.
I
I
mean, I
mean,
feel like
actually,
my first appearances on this show definitely did not cover cannabis as predominantly as has
I,
been as of late.
we cover pattern recognitions.
There we go.
We cover patterns.
Yeah, I'll take
Um,
that. I'll take that.
so yeah, patterns of corruption.
That's
I
right.
don't, unfortunately. So I don't really think there's now,
Uh,
okay, so the
last one.
last one is probably uh California cannabis production increases by double digits.
Where's it all going? Because California can't consume the amount of cannabis that it produces.
And it legally can't export it either.
Hmm.
Where's it all going?
Holy shit. 1.4 million pounds.
Increased by 11, almost 12%. However, an enormous illicit marijuana market continues to thrive despite the efforts of regulators and law enforcement, with legal production totaling an estimated 11.4 million pounds. So,
Illegal. So that's interesting. So we have 1.4 million pounds legally and 11.4 million illegally.
I mean, just tells you right there what's wrong with cannabis legalization, who actually Governor Newsom has sole control over what they do on Prop 64. He could change anything he wanted right now. Anyway, um, most of that illicit cannabis is shipped out of state to destinations unknown. No, the destinations are known. They're the states that aren't legal. Just pick one. Texas, a lot of his stuff comes from Texas because I see all the brands that I see in California here, and I'm like, but
How'd
it's
that
not,
get here?
but it's not legal here. How did you get here? Like,
Hmm.
what
Magic.
what are the gummies I just saw? I mean, Camino. They're Camino gummies. They're good. Like the cannabis ones are good. I haven't tried the hemp ones because I know not
Synthetic.
cannabis.
Yeah.
So, which is wild that they're just that brazen about it. But anyway, um, licensed production in the state is 1.4 million pounds. Overall cannabis consumption in California is 3.8 million pounds.
So 3.8 from 11.4 is 7.7? No, stoner math.
Donor
Yeah.
math, 6.8 or something like that. I don't know.
I have a calculator. Hold on. 11.4 minus
I love it.
3.8
I love it.
minus 3.8 is
We should
7.6. That was close.
yes,
7.6.
7.6.
So 7.6 million pounds doesn't get consumed in California.
That's crazy.
That is crazy. That's really crazy.
That's pretty
But
wild.
that just goes to show you like the scale of California as an economic
Where's all that money going?
producing.
Where's all that money going? So, okay, question one, where's the
That's
wheat?
a bet. That's a better question.
Question one, where's the wheat going? Question two, where's the money going?
Who's it going to?
And who's it going to? Question 2B. Like,
Hmm.
oh, wow. I mean, like I said,
Maybe
they're at the
maybe
point
we
of
do it. Maybe we do an investigation.
I prefer to stay alive for a while.
I was
Um,
gonna say I'd rather keep. I have a child to raise and
you
a
have a kid,
family.
man. You can't.
Those days are over.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Anyways,
No, no, I mean, this is pretty hilarious though. Like it's pretty in every industry, even when I first started the industry, I was really bright-eyed. I was like, oh my God, cannabis, everyone's happy-go-lucky hippie. Yay. It is not like that. And it is just as brutal, if not more brutal and cutthroat than a legal industry because it has to be, because it's got a it's like you're fighting for survival. What do you do when you're fighting for survival? Anything. So
yeah.
yeah. I mean,
Yep.
you got to ask yourself why they took so long to legalize cannabis after they medically legalized it.
Yeah.
And they let Colorado do it first. And then they, because I think they might have figured out where the cartels are, but
Maybe.
maybe. I, uh, yeah,
Hold on.
I won't. Yeah, that's all I'll say about that. But
Yeah, I was gonna say, well, we don't need to get into the weeds on that one though.
sorry.
'Cause they're on our terrorist watch list now.
Yeah, yikes. Um, so yeah, go ahead.
So in response to the report, Nicole Elliott, the director of the DCC, said regulators and lawmakers have made, quote, tremendous strides in strengthening California's legal cannabis market. By reducing costs, expanding access, and strengthening enforcement, we're creating a fairer, safer, and more resilient industry. That sounds like, you know, early Brett and Phil days in the cannabis industry. If we were going to be the ones trying to make it into a legal
Oh,
industry.
I'm so convinced I was going to do it. I
Yeah.
was so convinced. I can just, just give me it'll happen. No,
Yeah.
no,
Hell no.
way bigger.
Uh, Corporate area economist, consultancy, agriculture, and water underscores some of the fundamental contradictions of California's roughly $5 billion legal marijuana market. Market remains the largest in the United States and continues to grow overall. That's despite clear signs of a bubble burst, such as inactive or surrendered business licenses outnumbering active permits, according to a recent separate analysis. That's interesting. I didn't know that. There are some positive trends heading into 2012, according to the executive summary in the Department of Cannabis Control Commission report. The positive trends include an increase in nearly 5% of nominal wholesale prices. That's good. A hike of 75% or 7.5% in the quote gross value of the industry, and an 11.8% increase in licensed production. So, like, for all intents and purposes, it's good. It's better, I guess, to have more licensed producers producing, but as we said, like that's like a drop in the bucket, man.
Well,
Like
a lot of
11.
the inactive licenses and things like that too, could be mergers and acquisitions.
Oh, that's true.
So, if you have two licenses merged to one, one's going to be inactive or expire.
Yeah. Conditions might become even more difficult if a scheduled increase in the state's excise tax from its current 15% to as much as 90% takes effect by July 1. For example, a state's increase in cannabis production value to $1 billion in 2024 comes after production value plummeted from 1.2 billion in 2021 to 881 million in 2022. Meanwhile, the wholesale value of illicit production might be as high as 7.9 billion, the report notes. So
So yeah, you think someone's gonna let that $7.9 billion go somewhere else easily?
hell nah.
Yeah.
Hell
Go back up real
nah.
quick. Go back up real quick to that 7.9 billion. We highlight that real quick. That right there is exactly why cannabis is not legal. The wholesale value of illicit production is $7.9 billion. Now, is that just
Wholesale.
California or is that worldwide?
Wholesale.
That's
That
wholesale,
ain't that ain't like
not
end
street
user
value.
like $20 grams. No, no, no. That's like $1,000 pounds.
That's what Costco would pay for it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
$7.9 billion, which is exactly why it's not legal and is why that's all going to the DEA because
Mhm.
that illicit market is the reason why they need a big budget is to go fight it. And if you have a $7.9 billion budget, you got to have at least something equivalent to fight it. I don't know.
Imagine all the weapons and stuff that they get in the illegal market with $7.9 billion dollars.
I
That's
know,
just and
man.
that's just cannabis. That's not even talking about all the other drugs that they probably also sell. Just saying.
Well, no, I mean, we own the poppy fields, so they don't need, that's not,
True. Well, not anymore.
invaded countries for that. That's old news, bro. What are you talking about? Like,
We gave it back to the Taliban, I thought. And
we,
they're like
we
getting rid of it
we
again.
then banned it. Like the most production of poppy ever in the world was while US was occupying Afghanistan
Yep. And it just so happened that US troops were protecting those fields. Again, different conversation.
because the
But
farmers need it. But actually, the Taliban outlawed ban growing poppy. But
yep, yep,
anyway,
yep.
sorry. Yeah, different. Hey, that's agriculture. That's agriculture.
That's true. It's a
That's just
parallel
that's
subject.
under
Parallel,
the A
parallel.
of cannabis, can culture, agriculture. You know, no,
Yeah,
that's a
it's
poppy
true.
area. Sorry.
True, 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 true.
Second A is agriculture.
Ooh, there we go.
Up with
Hope for
hope.
mar Hope for marijuana producers as hemp ban effects felt. For marijuana producers, wholesale prices appear to have stabilized or even recovered slightly after years of double-digit declines. Adjusted for inflation, wholesale flower prices plummeted 43%, oof, in 2022 and another 10% in 2023, so they're down 53% from 2021.
Jeez.
Yikes. Before increasing to roughly 11.7% from the first quarter of 2024 to the fourth quarter, the ERA economics report found. However, both the exit of some licensed producers and retailers, as well as a ban on hemp-derived THC products imposed by Governor Gavin Newsom, bodes well for operators that can survive, the report noted. Strong demand and reduced supply as licensed cultivators exit the market, while restrictions on hemp-derived cannabinoids take effect should put upward pressure on price, according to the report. Mm,
Maybe he'll talk about it on his new podcast.
do you mean the one that talks about how he's trying to become a centrist and,
Says I am Gavin. What is it? I am Gavin Newsom, or
yeah, and
I don't know. Maybe he says we.
his TDS is wearing off finally and all that kind of shit. Anyways,
No, his paycheck changed.
yeah, exactly,
His
exactly.
paycheck issuer changed, and he also decided that hey, if I'm going to run for president, I need more than just the California liberals to back me. So, I mean,
hmm
this is officially his campaign kickoff for president in 2028.
In the same breath that Katie Porter's now basically staunchly as far opposed to Trump as possible.
Right.
But anyways, we're not. This isn't a political conversation. This is a cannabis
No,
conversation.
cannabis isn't political at all. Um, so yeah.
Oh, but also speaking of politics, sweet flag, bro.
Oh yeah. So and so, who told me about that? Who told me about that flag?
I don't know, some guy probably.
This flag, we'll get into more in depth later. We're gonna roll this out. It's gonna be kind of my new background a little bit, but that is a flag that this man introduced me to, and it is the civil flag of peace. in the United States, as opposed to the flag that you see with the blue stars and the blue background and the white stars. That's actually the war flag of the United States of America. You can Google this, you can check it out. It's on every official website everywhere. It's, most countries have a war flag and a peace flag. This flag has not been flown since before the Civil War. So it said, quote, most people alive today have never seen this flag flown. It has its origins in the original Sons of Liberty, which were the people who helped start our revolution. And it means peace. So I'm going to be flying this one from now on and not the other one. Nothing against it. I just prefer this one. So
Amen.
I prefer peace rather than war is, I guess, the best way to put it. So thanks again to Philosophies for the tip on, and by the way, made in America. So in case anyone's asking, I did, got it off a website I don't like, so I won't say the name, but I had a gift card. So, and this was made in America. So thanks.
It was put to good use. Put to good use.
Put to good use.
Yeah, man. The Stars and Bars is a great little rabbit hole to dive down. I have recently traversed said rabbit hole myself and was very pleasantly surprised when I came across that little kernel of information and history. So I'm glad you took the initiative and got yourself one and put me on game as to where I can get one myself.
And by the way, this is kind of a weird optical illusion because the flag is actually sideways. So this is not supposed to, anyway, look it up. You'll see the right version of it. So thanks to Philosophies for the tip and joining again for another episode last week tonight with the Cannabis Podcast and Philosophies. Thanks for joining.
Thank
Stay
you.
blessed. And until next time, don't forget to tip your bud tenders.
Peace.